All right, hello everyone. It looks like we have a couple of attendees who have dialed in. So wanted to let you know you're in the right place. This is Catherine Brobston from Hustle, and we are going to give it till maybe a minute after the hour and get started. Hi there, I see a couple more people have joined. Just want to let you all know that you are in the right place. This is the Hustle and Colgate webinar, and we'll be starting in just a couple of minutes. Hi everyone, this is Catherine at Hustle. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to sit tight for another minute or two, and then we'll get started. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for calling in today and joining us. I'm going to get started with some intros and some housekeeping things, and I'm sure more folks will trickle on in the next couple of minutes. Thank you all for joining. I see some familiar names who have joined us and also some new ones as well. So my name is Catherine Brobston. I am not Catherine Marhenke. You'll hear from her for most of our webinar today, but I work at Hustle and I am our education account manager. And what that means is that I work with all of our awesome education clients who are using texting to meet their constituents. And so one thing that I'm really excited about doing here at Hustle is building an education user community where you all can really share ideas and best practices and lessons learned. I came from higher ed advancement, and so I know how important that is to all of us. And so I'm excited to continue that here at Hustle. And today, I've worked with Catherine for a while now in this role. And Catherine and I both have heard from people as they're thinking about texting, okay, we've done it for perhaps this one broad-based outreach, whether it be a giving day or fiscal year-end giving or calendar year-end giving. What do we do next? How do we really incorporate this as more of a broad-based channel in our shop? And so that's what Catherine's going to be talking about today. Colgate University has been a wonderful partner for quite some time now, and they do a great job of using texting across various kinds of outreach in their shop. A couple housekeeping things very quickly. The webinar today is structured to run about 45 minutes. And so about half of that will be Catherine presenting on their wonderful work at Colgate. And she's going to provide you with some great examples and lessons learned that you all can use in your own areas. And then we've saved plenty of time for questions. So please feel free to be submitting questions as we're going through. You don't need to necessarily wait until the end, although I'll give you a reminder to submit those questions via that Q&A button once she wraps up, and I'll ask a few to kind of get the ball rolling. And with that, I will turn it over to Catherine.
Great, Catherine. Thank you very much. Sorry to confuse everyone out there today with Catherine and Catherine presenting. I just wanted to start off by thanking Hustle for inviting us to be a part of this webinar today. We've been a client of Hustle's since spring of 2017, and we have really enjoyed our work with the platform and our partnership with Hustle. So I'm really glad to be here with all of you today, and I hope that some of what we have to share is helpful to you in your shops and the good work that you're doing for your institutions. So just to give you a little bit of information about Colgate, I think it's helpful to know about the organizations that people are sharing information from, because I think it's important that we think about how we scale someone else's program to work with the school or the institution where we are. So just give you some info about Colgate and who we are. We're a national liberal arts university. We are located in central New York. We have just under 3,000 students enrolled. We have D1 athletics, which makes us a little bit different than a lot of our peer schools. On our annual giving team, we've got a team of 13 people, so we're not a small department. Last year, we raised $3.5 million in annual giving dollars, and 7.8 of that was unrestricted into our the Colgate Fund. That gives you just a sense of our scale and our scope. We had 46% alumni participation, giving participation last year. Over the last 3 years, we've seen growth in both our dollars raised and our alumni participation rate. And we've had Hustle on board with us for 2 of those last 3 fiscal years. And we really feel as though the platform has helped us achieve some of that growth. And so we want to give a shout out to Hustle, the great product that it is, for helping us achieve some of our big goals. So now you know a little bit more about us, and I will jump into what it is that we do with texting. So I know many of you are here today either because you're already a client of Hustle's and you've already jumped on this texting bandwagon, or you're thinking about it. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of information about why Colgate incorporates texting into our platform and why we like it so much. So one of the reasons that we really enjoy texting is because it's a channel that allows us to meet donors where they are. People are used to consuming information in a way that is most comfortable and easiest for them these days, because information is coming at us in so many different ways. And so we find that texting is one way that we can meet a large number of alumni in a way that's actually easy and convenient for them to engage with us. We've incorporated into our multi-channel marketing approach. When we are designing an annual giving marketing campaign, we're taking into consideration all of the channels that are available to us, and texting is just one of our normal channels. So we think about direct mail, email, web presence, social media, volunteer outreach, and one of the channels that we always consider is texting. Is it appropriate? Is it the right time? Is this the right group of people to be reaching out to with a text right now? One of the reasons we really, really love texting and Hustle in particular is because of the level of engagement that it gives us with our alumni and our parents and anyone else that we're texting with. Hustle is a two-way platform, and the only other way that you're going to get this kind of conversation is if you can capture someone on the phone. You're not going to be able to send an email, a mass marketing email to a group of people asking them to give to a solicitation and have them respond to you and ask you questions about their giving history, or say to you, I already gave this year, why are you asking me again? And you can clarify with them, no, you actually gave last year, let me show you your giving history. You can't do that with any other form of kind of marketing that you might do with your alumni, but you can do it with texting. It allows people to air their grievances, to get those things off their chest, to ask you questions, to clarify their giving history. There's a ambulance going by window, there we go. And to connect with the university on a deeper level. And I've got examples of some of these things in the slides that I'm going to show you in just a minute. So I think, Catherine, there we go. One of the questions we get oftentimes is, so I understand how I could incorporate texting into annual giving, and that we might text during a giving day, or we might text at the end of the fiscal year, but what else can I do with this platform? So here's some examples of some of the things that we do at Colgate outside of solicitation that I think could be used for lots of organizations, or that you might be able to find ways to take these examples and tweak them to fit your organization and your goals. So some of the things that we do is text for event registration, especially regional events. We might send a text out to a region where we have an event coming to say, hey, we hope that you heard that this is happening. Are you interested in coming? Can I send you a link to register? And that gives people an opportunity to ask more questions about the event, to get some more information, and of course to register easily online through their phone. We also use it to send event reminders. So to attendees that have RSVP'd and said that they are coming, we'll send them a text and say, don't forget that it's happening tomorrow at this building. Can't wait to see you there. We also used it for last minute updates, either to let people know that a venue has changed or that there's been a change in the program or something like that. Other ways that you can use it that we've used it in the past are for stewardship. We did a great stewardship project last year where it was actually the first time that we had a student hustling. Normally our staff hustles, which I'll talk more about later. So in this instance, we had a student sending a text message on Colgate Day. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but every Friday the 13th, 13 is our lucky number, so every Friday the 13th is Colgate Day. It's a day that all alumni celebrate all things Colgate. And we had a student send a message to a select number of alumni and just wish them a happy Colgate Day. And the responses that we got to it were amazing. I do have an example of that later on in the presentation. We're dabbling in the idea of using texting as a VIP service. For instance, one thing you could consider that we are thinking about doing in the coming year or two is maybe we could offer texting as a service to our leadership donors at reunion. So after people show up to reunion, we send a message to those who are in our Leadership Giving Society and let them know, hey, if you need anything over the course of the weekend, this is like a concierge service for you. Please write to us and let us know. So maybe that could work for you in some capacity at reunion or homecoming, maybe for a family weekend type event. We also use it for parent solicitation and stewardship. So along with speaking to alumni, we absolutely find that it's a great tool to talk to parents. They're texting with their students. And so if they can hear from us, especially if we can personalize it to them and their students' experience, is a great way to connect with them. Just today, we came up with a new idea of how we're going to use texting. We're going to use it for volunteer recruitment. So we're going to be sending a hustle to a select group of people, and we're going to be asking them if they, A, hopefully that they received the email that was sent to them by the class manager, and B, would they like to have a conversation about coming on and being a class agent for us. So yet another way to just engage people in a way that's easy and convenient for them. Great. So I know that people are curious about like what types of messages do we send and how do those conversations go. So I've got a series of slides here. These are actual conversations that my team has had while we've been hustling. I have changed the names in here just to make things extra, extra private. So if you're curious, I did change a few names in these. So this is an example of kind of the opening that we use for most of our fundraising messages. Some of the things that we find are really helpful are to have a specific deadline when we're asking people to make a gift, because if we just ask them to make a gift whenever, they may, with the best of intentions, say, yes, I'll do it, and then get distracted and think I'll do it tomorrow or I'll do it next week, and then they never get around to actually doing it. So we find that including a specific deadline, we asked them to make their gift by June 30th. I think we sent this on June 28th. So it was, they needed to get it done quickly, which we find helps with effectiveness. We also find that it's really effective if you can bring up their giving history or something personal about them. So in this example, we're asking them to renew their support to a fund that they've given to in the past. And again, it just makes it, it sounds like a real conversation because it is a real conversation. It makes it so much more engaging and so much more personal for the alum that you're working with. One of the reasons I pulled this example was because this person went on to ask some questions. She wanted to know about what she gave last year. And she said this really nice thing about, thanks for reaching out. I know every dollar counts everywhere. I also wanted to throw that in case you haven't, ventured into your first texting yet and you're worried about the responses that you're going to get with your first campaign. We find a lot of alumni are actually really receptive to it. So we get a lot of really nice positive responses like that. So I threw that in there just to, bully up your confidence in case you haven't stepped up and actually run a campaign yet. So this person wanted to know about her giving history. We were able to, in real time, provide her with her giving history and thank her and give her information on how to give again. She went through, she made her gift via Venmo and asked, could you confirm that it went through? We were able to check it again in real time, saw her gift was there, right back to her and say, yep, it's all set, you're all good to go. You can't do that with a mass marketing email, you just can't. So that's one of the reasons that we love Venmo. And this is, or I'm sorry, not Venmo, Hustle. We like Venmo too, but we're talking about Hustle today. So this is one of the reasons why we really enjoy Hustle and some of the results that we get for it for fundraising. But if you want to see some examples of other ways that we use it, I've got some of those too. So the next conversation that we have, my friend, there we go. This is an example of what we do with an event. So as you can see, we've written to an alum and said, hi, this is Becky from Alumni Relations. Wanted to know if you heard about this event we had coming up in DC. Could I send you some info? And Kate says, yep, I saw it. I wanted to come. I'm going to be in town. Can you send me the info? So we sent her the info and there you go. Now she's able to attend the event. And again, she didn't have to remember to go back to an email. We didn't have to, it was obvious that she was interested in the event and she got busy and she got distracted by life and, hadn't come back to it. So this was a great way for us to get in front of her and get her information quickly and easily so that she could get registered for that event. Up next, we've got an example of stewardship. This is the Colgate Day message that I mentioned. I wanted to include this because I was a little, this was the first, as I said, this was the first time we had a student text and I was a little bit nervous. What if she gets people that write back to her and they're cranky and they're saying, why are you texting me? She got such great responses to this. She sat in my office for 20 minutes after kind of the pitter patter had died down and we weren't really getting a lot of responses. And I said, you can go at any time. I can handle, whatever comes in after this. And she said, oh, I'm having so much fun. I just don't want to leave. Like, this was really fun. It was so great to give this student this opportunity. She reached out to almost 500 alumni in a matter of less than 2 hours, sent them happy messages and got so many messages like this. How's the weather, which is a constant question we get here because this was on April 13th and it was still snowing. How are your finals coming? What are your plans for next year? And she was able to have these really lovely conversations with these alumni through this easy platform. A lot of people that just wrote back and said, happy Colgate Day. A couple of wrong numbers that wrote back and said, I don't know what Colgate Day is, but I'm really into fresh breath and happy Colgate Day to you too. So absolutely every response we got to this particular campaign was positive. So we're definitely going to find more ways to incorporate stewardship into our texting strategy in the coming year. Up next, this is a fun example. This is an example in particular of a lapsed donor that we were able to re-engage through Hustle. I also think it's an example of the kind of VIP service that you can offer through the platform. So one of our agents reached out to this alum, Conrad, and asked if he would consider making a $13 gift to the Colgate Fund. The reason we asked him for that and not something more specific was because he, at this point, was so long lapsed, we considered him a non-donor. And so we were just asking him to make a participatory level gift to the Colgate Fund. He wrote back and said yes, and he'd been long lapsed for a long time, so that was great. We sent him the information. There was some back and forth where he started, and I've taken that out because it got a little long, but he was asking questions about, can you tell me, like, and we get this a lot, like, who are you? And we answer very honestly. We tell people, I work in the annual giving office. We provide them with our email addresses if they want to follow up in that way. So it was one of those questions like, do you work at Colgate? I do. Is there anyone who works in your office that graduated close to my class year? There is this person. And there was some back and forth and some exchange. Because of the lovely conversation that took place, this person ended up making a very generous gift that evening, and our agent saw the gift come through our online giving page and wrote back and just thanked him, again, in real time, because you can do that so much for his support. We'd asked him for a $13 gift, and he made a gift, more than $13. So he continued, to say, oh, you're a great salesman, good job. And she replied and offered to send someone to come and meet with him to give him information about what's going on campus, an update on the state of the gate, and hoped that they had talked earlier about reunion. He was coming up on his 40th reunion, but he didn't live near New York, didn't think he could come. And again, he'd been long lapsed and rather disengaged with the university. And he kind of slips in here at the end, thanks again, I might even come back for my 40th. He did come back. He came back to reunion, met up with a bunch of his classmates, talked with the agent who was speaking with him that night, really and truly has re-engaged with the university in a way that he hasn't been in a long time. And that's translated also into his giving since reunion, which is fantastic. And I think this is a really great example of the VIP service that you can offer by being able to speak to someone in real time about either their giving or whatever else is going on, and also the ability of a text message to re-engage a disengaged or a long lapsed donor. So I think this is our last example. This is a solicitation that we did for parents. As you'll see, our agent here was able to, first of all, with a really easy hustle merge, include the student's name who's currently attending Colgate, so that this parent really knew that we knew their information and that we were really talking to them. We asked if she could give to a giving challenge, a one-day challenge that we had running. She said that she'd gotten it, asked some questions. We were able to answer the questions. She made her gift. And then she came back with this little extra piece of information. Her grandfather was class of 1939 and a huge alumni supporter, and her daughter's loving her experience at Colgate. She's glad to have helped. Again, it's just really nice that it's really nice that people feel like they can make a gift and that they can share a little bit with us, right? That they can give us a little bit more of their story and allow us to just engage with them in a way that we can really show our gratitude and our support for the ways that they support our university. Or again, answer their questions, clarify their concerns, or whatever the case may be. So some of the lessons that we've learned at Colgate over the course of our different types of texting campaigns. One big thing was that older alumni will engage, and they will give they'll engage via text, and they will give via mobile giving, or online giving. When we started up with this platform, we really thought that it was going to be a platform specific to kind of the millennial generation. And so we started there. We started by kind of testing with a smaller group of our most recent alumni, and we worked our way slowly back. At this point in time, we text all the way to the class of 1970, and we see great results. Now, we absolutely do have people that have written to us and say, please don't text me. So we don't text them anymore, but we still see fabulous results. I mean, my example from a couple slides ago, he was class of 1978, if I'm doing my math correctly. Yeah, that sounds right. And he was engaging with us on text. He was making his gift online. So I'll say, definitely don't be afraid to test your older alumni and see how they respond. Everyone's going to have a different tipping point, right? Our alumni bodies are all different, but don't be afraid to go down that route. We found that a really good mobile responsive giving site is really important to the success of your solicitation hustles. In the beginning, we were using one page that isn't terribly mobile friendly. We switched to a different provider that we have that has a much more mobile responsive site, and we saw an immediate increase in our fulfillment on pledges. So I think that that's really key. If you have a platform that you can offer to people like Venmo, which is another easy way to give with a phone, absolutely offer it when you're hustling. Invite your alumni into a conversation. As you saw with all of the examples I just shared, every single one of those, with the exception of the stewardship one, was asking a question. We never just said, our fiscal year is coming to an end, hope you'll make a gift, here's a link. We always ask them if they would like to get a link, because first of all, I think it just makes us sound more real, right? And less spammy. And second of all, it gives them the opportunity to ask questions and to feel like we're really concerned with them and that we are a person having a conversation with them. And that is why we text after all, because we are people having real conversations. My caveat to that is, unless you don't want to hear from them, at our last reunion, we sent two kind of event update hustles. One very straightforward said, and it was just sent to reunion attendees, and it said, this event has been moved from this location to this location. And we got a couple of people that replied back and said, okay, but that was it. Then we had another one where we wanted to let a certain class know that they were able to go and participate in this late night pizza party, basically. And we wanted to give, it was a result of a competition we had won, and one of the alumni in their class had like earned this prize for them, basically. So we wanted to give a shout out to that person who had done that work and that earned this prize for his class. And that script was written a lot more like our other scripts, where it said, hi, this is so-and-so from Colgate. Hope you're enjoying reunion. Wanted to let you know that you can do this thing tonight, thanks to so-and-so. And because it was so conversational and sounded like a real person, they treated it like a real person. And for the rest of the weekend, that agent was getting questions about, like, I don't know how I'm going to get to the airport this weekend, and had many conversations with people about bringing ranch dipping sauce to the pizza party. And on looking back on it, we were like, well, that was probably not the right approach. We probably should have just said, a thing is happening and it's really great, and go, and not make it sound like a person was texting them. So I would say that our lesson learned there was always invite them into a conversation, unless you really don't want to have a conversation with them, in which case don't do that. We've found that Hustle is a really great way to keep your data clean. Over the course of the first year that we hustled, so our first fiscal year end all the way through calendar year end, we cleaned up about 2,000 phone numbers out of our database that either were wrong numbers, they were numbers attributed to the wrong alum, so maybe it was the right number for the household, but it was actually the wife's cell phone, not the husband's cell phone, or something like that, or they weren't cell phones at all. And as a result of that, we've got much better data when we go into calling. We're spending a lot less time trying bad numbers, because we've gotten really good feedback on what are good numbers to contact people and what aren't. It's a great way to involve departments outside of annual giving. You've seen a number of examples there. Our Office of Alumni Relations is now hustling. Our Special Events Office is hustling. Our Parents Fund and our athletics teams are hustling as it relates to fundraising, but still, there's potential to grow that in other ways too. So definitely involve your partners within your advancement department and across campus, because there's lots of ways you could use the tool. We find that segmenting and personalization is really important, and that making a specific ask is really helpful. If someone's maid is a regular, leadership donor, you don't want to ask them to make a $50 gift. You want to ask them to make their leadership level gift. If someone is a regular participatory level donor, you don't want to do the opposite, right? Because you might just completely turn them off. It's the same thing we do with email, and we all know how to do it, right? So we apply those same segments and asks that we would in an email to a hustle. We find that deadlines drive results, as I said before. I would recommend waiting until you're close to the deadline for something and then hustling and asking people to respond within 24 to 48 hours, because otherwise they just get distracted. We all do. And the other piece that I would say that is a really important lesson that we've learned is that you should keep this platform fun. One of the reasons that I think Hustle is so effective for us is because our team genuinely enjoys it. When we hustle for especially our big fiscal and calendar year end, we gather around a table together. We, sometimes we plan it so that we stop and we have a dinner break and we enjoy a meal together, but we laugh and we joke and we send messages and we get great responses and we watch gifts trickle in and we enjoy it. It's great team building, and it's so much fun because you get to see in real time, like, results of your work. So absolutely keep it fun. It's a fun platform. You should have fun with it, and the alumni that you're engaging with should be having fun with it too. And I think, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate that. And I'm going to go ahead and show a bonus slide here of the Colgate team having fun.
This is my great team that I work with. So a little shout out to all of my friends in Colgate's annual giving office, and hustle, because we love to hustle.
So I'm going to dive into Q&A. I've seen some questions already coming in. I'm going to ask one to kind of get us started, and then I'll start to organize those and pitch them over to you, Catherine. So one thing that you and I have talked about and that you know is coming is you just mentioned at the end this great list of other teammates and other departments who are using Hustle. And you all were the first ones. And I think one thing that I hear questions about is, how do I get, how do I work on this with other colleagues in other departments? How can I bring this to other units? And I'd love to hear a little bit from you about how you have done that and kind of invited people in to make this more of a comprehensive campaign.
Absolutely. So what we did and what I think could work for most departments is first we got comfortable with the tool. We did some hustling, we did some testing, we saw what was working for us, what wasn't working for us. And then we invited our colleagues in just to see what we were doing. We said, you should really see this thing. It's really fun. So we invited them to our hustle parties. We shared a sandwich with them. And we just showed them what we were doing. We would let them jump onto our accounts and do some of it to see how easy it was to send them and respond to them. And that got the conversations going. That got their wheels spinning. It wasn't that we sat as the annual giving office and said, well, you should do this and you should do this. Because they know best how their work needs to get done and how to engage with the constituents that they're trying to engage with. So what we found worked really well was just to invite them into what we were doing, tell them about the product and how we were using it, and kind of let them experiment with it a little bit, and then start thinking about how they could apply it. And then as they were having those ideas, well, we could use it to send event invitations. We could use it for this. We're like, yeah, you absolutely could. And then we helped them because we were underfoot, engaged with the product, knew kind of what we were doing at that point. Then we were able to help them get up and running with it. So now they're running their own campaigns with really little assistance from us, but we were able to help get them up and going. I also hear from people, what do you do about conflicting schedules? I want to send a message about a event and you want to send a solicitation. So because we kind of brought the product online first at our office, it lives in the Office of Annual Giving with us. And we have one person who's in charge of sort of the schedule of who is sending what and when to make sure that we're not overlapping. I definitely think that's important that you have some point person amongst all your users who's able to maintain a schedule of what populations are being touched and what the messages are. But it's a pretty easy thing to do just once you know who that point person is.
Yeah. And I think one thing that you all may have noticed if you all are already Hustle clients is a new accounts feature, which helps with some of that. You can have an account admin and they can see all the orgs and what's going on there to help manage that. So I'm going to start to throw a couple questions your way, Catherine, from the audience here. So one very easy question I can answer is that there will be a recording sent out and you can see the slides after the presentation. So don't worry, Catherine's great information won't be lost. A lot of folks are curious about your mobile giving site. If you can share what site you use and whether you've seen any difference in performance when you use Venmo or the site.
We don't do one or the other. I'll answer those backwards. So we tend to say, just like I had in that one example, give online here, and it is a clickable link. And if they click it, it will open up the browser on their phone and take them straight to our giving page or through Venmo at. And we link our Venmo handle in the same way so that if they were to click the handle or the link to the handle, a pop-up happens that says, would you like to open your Venmo app? And you say yes as a user, and it takes you right to our Colgate Fund account to make your gift. So we offer both. So I couldn't say as to whether one or the other would work better because we just offer both. We are using Give Campus Forms product for our mobile giving right now. They have a really good mobile responsive site that's easy to customize to different campaigns and to track with trackable links. And so we like that because it allows us to get better data about who we're able to see from Hustle, how many people we've attempted and how many people have responded, and if those are positive or negative responses or pledges or not interested. From that, we're able to parse it down farther on the Give Campus side using trackable links to see how many people actually clicked and how many people from those clicks made gifts. I know there are other online giving vendors that could offer similar things, but that's the company that we use.
Great. Got some clarifying questions around how many people you do generally text in a year with
Yeah.
Hustle, and what age group you go up to.
So we go up, I should guess, back to the class of 1970. So age-wise, that's, math. I think they're in their 60s, 70s, I think in their 60s, if I'm doing my math right. And like I said, we've had really good success all the way up to the class of 1970. That's getting, right on the cusp of 50th reunion. So next year we'll be texting our 50th reunion class, which I think is pretty exciting. The other part of the question was about
kind of how many people over the course of the year you texted.
Yes. I don't have exact numbers. I do know that in our fiscal year end our calendar year, our most recent calendar and fiscal year end, each of those Hustle campaigns was just under 8,000 people. Now, a lot of those were duplicates that we texted again because they still hadn't made a gift, but not all of them were. Some of them in the calendar year end were fall only donors, and some of the fiscal year end were spring only donors. So that was probably about 10,000 people, I'd say. So we're not shy. We don't limit it to a really small group. We do, we like to cast that net wide. And if they don't want to hear from us that way, then we don't contact them that way anymore. But we like to at least give them the option to engage with us through the platform.
Yeah. And then just another kind of sub question to that. For parents, do you kind of cut off at a certain age or, group, or how do you do that?
No, we really don't. And I don't even know if we have that data about parents, like how old they are. So for parents, it's about the fact that their child is currently enrolled. Or I believe we've also texted to, there are some parents we have that even though their children have graduated, they've stayed engaged with the university. And so they could roll into a texting pool as well because they are donors and we do like to engage with them and they're still important constituents. As a rule, I don't think we would just text lapsed parents if they weren't otherwise engaged. But for parents, there's no real age cutoff. It's just their child is currently enrolled, so we'll contact them.
Great. So this one is a little bit of a thought experiment for you. You mentioned that you have a 13-person annual giving team.
Mm-hmm.
The folks on the line have smaller teams. So, if you were a small shop, 2-3 people, how might you approach incorporating text message?
So I think, and I've definitely been asked this question before, and I've been in that place before. I've worked at other organizations where we didn't have the human resource that we have here, that I'm very grateful to have here. So I think what I would do is, it was one of the reasons why I explained a little bit more about Colgate so that people could think about scaling to their organization. So I would say then, if you're thinking about, we have a limited resource to devote to this, prioritize it. Like, what are the constituents that you think might most need this attention, and focus your efforts there before you just expand to everybody all the way back to the class of 1970. So if you need to, maybe contacting lapsed and never donors right off the bat isn't the best move for you. Maybe what you should be doing is thinking about segmenting that down to LIBUNs and SIBUNs and seeing what kind of responses you get from that and building your platform from there. One thing we found, especially the more we've done it, is that it doesn't take us long at all to contact 8,000 people. So I think that even a group of 2 or 3 people could contact 5,000 people in a couple of hours and still have meaningful conversations. Now, someone will have to be checking these accounts into the evening. People will continue to respond late that night and for a couple of days or even weeks later, but it's on your phone. It's an easy thing to check. One of the things we do here is we kind of decide who's in charge of the platform once we leave. We take turns, so I'll take it for an hour, someone else will take it for an hour, and then we stop at 9 o'clock and we start again the next day, and everyone is responsible for logging back in, checking their own messages, and we all kind of keep up with it for a few days after that. So I think that even if you only have 2 or 3 people that could sit down and do a hustle, you could still do a lot of engaging, certainly more than you could ever do sitting at your desk making phone calls with those same 2 or 3 people. And I would just prioritize what's most important to you in terms of engagement and kind of widen from there as you get comfortable with the tool and as you find the methods that are working and resonating with your constituents.
Great. I'm a lot of you will notice I'm combining some questions with others. We have a lot of questions coming in, a lot of attendees, so I'm doing my best. If your specific question doesn't get asked and answered, I will follow up with you after to make sure that we can have that conversation. But a lot of questions are coming in about CRM and data and how you manage that. So could you share kind of what CRM you use and how you get data between that and Hustle?
So that's an interesting question for us. We're actually going through a CRM conversion right now. So up until this summer, we've been using Banner. We are now officially live with a Blackbaud product. So I'm not entirely sure of how things are going to work moving forward, although I've no doubt we're going to figure it out. But what we did before, and what makes sense to me to do kind of regardless of your CRM, you have customizable fields that you can load into your Hustle data when you are setting up a campaign. So one of the fields that we load is a unique ID. It's the unique ID that's associated with our alumni or with that individual in our CRM. And so what we do is we load that in along with their name and their giving history and their phone number and everything else. After the campaign is done and we pull the reports back out of Hustle, we're able to use that ID to see who either said yes or no, and from there, using their ID, what the gift result was. So it takes a couple of days for us to get this all kind of worked out because gifts have to be processed and posted. We all know, there's a process to these things. So a couple of days later, when the majority of the gifts have gone through, either have been made online, they've been processed, they've been posted, they're living in the CRM now, we're able to basically say, well, of the people who said yes, who actually came through and made a gift. I'm hoping that as we are moving into our new CRM, we're going to be able to continue to refine and build on this system that we have. That's the way we've been doing it. So it's doable. It involves some manual work on someone's part to kind of get that done, but that's how we've been doing it. Right now, we are not keeping track of the fact that these people we're not loading an appeal code onto records, for instance, to say that they received a Hustle. I think that's something we're actually going to be doing moving forward with our new CRM, which will give us more information about how often we're contacting individual people and hopefully what the results of those contacts are. So it's an ongoing project for us. I would definitely recommend that you have a serious conversation with either your IT department or your operations department, whoever's handling those types of things in your office, to think about how that process is going to go from start to finish.
Yeah. Kind of a data adjacent question around tags here. So do you all use tags? And if so, kind of what's your strategy?
Do we use tags? Do we use Hustle tags?
Yes, Hustle tags. So let me back up for a second for the audience. There's an opportunity within Hustle to basically apply tags to different records to help you categorize them. And then when you export the data, those can come out with the, record. So
yes.
Do you all use tags?
Thank you. It took me a second to catch up with you because our new CRM has them too. And for a second, I was confusing myself.
Gotcha.
Yes, we do use Hustle tags. Hustle has a built-in feature where if you are saying that someone is an opt-out, that means that they're going to, when you export your data, that opt-out flag is going to be exported, and it will also, correct me if I'm wrong here, Catherine, it will also be flagged in Hustle's software so that if we were to try and contact that phone number again, your software would not permit it because the person has opted out.
Yes.
So that's great, but it wasn't giving us all the information we needed on export. So we have built tags for wrong number and for other solicitation codes. So do not solicit and do not call, because sometimes we get people that say, don't contact me at all at this number. So we also put a do not call on that number, or people who say, don't solicit me, we don't solicit them, and wrong numbers. And so the great thing with the wrong numbers so in the beginning, before the tag, we were keeping all these notes by hand, and that was a little scary that, my poor penmanship could mess up that info capture. So now we use those tags to apply that information to people as we're having these conversations. So it's really clear who asked not to be solicited or who we had a bad phone number for.
Right.
We don't opt out wrong numbers, because if the university was trying to reach out to me, but they had someone else's phone number and that person said, well, you've got the wrong number, we don't want to mark that person as do not text, because if they find my phone number, we want them to be able to try to contact me. So We don't opt out wrong numbers, we flag them as wrong numbers and then update that information in our system. So we can go in front.
Right. And you don't text them the next time, basically.
Right.
You don't fill them in. Okay.
Yep.
We have a question about how you kind of balance this with other appeals throughout the year. So do you exclude the alumni you text from any other appeals throughout the year, or are you just kind of layering this on to your other outreach?
We layer it on, but that's sort of our approach. So when we are building a appeal, or as I think of it, more of a marketing campaign, as I said, we're very multi-channel in our approach. So what we do is we develop a population of everyone who we're going to contact at some point during this campaign. And then we break that population up like everyone does. You know, who are we talking to about their leadership level gifts? Who are we talking to about remaining a loyal member of our consecutive giving society? Who is a live aunt? Who is a never donor that needs to be, you know, kind of wooed into just making a $13 gift? And then we decide which populations we are going to be approaching with which channels. So again, we think about direct mail, email, web presence, volunteer outreach, social media, phonathon, and hustle. So it's just one of the channels that we incorporate into a larger campaign. Same thing really when we do events. People generally are getting a paper invitation and or an email invitation, but then they're also getting a hustle saying, you know, we really do hope that you'll come, and can we send you this link? The same way that you generally wouldn't send just a direct mail or an email to people. This day and age, you really do tend to send both unless you have good reason not to. We do the same thing, we send both. What we do is we structure the campaign in such a way that they're not getting these things at the same time. And we try to think really strategically about what makes sense to get when, you know. So we direct mail at the beginning generally, there's email follow-up, there's social media that's running in ads that are running in tangent with the campaign that are complementing and giving the same kind of messages. We tend to put hustling toward the end of the campaign when the deadline is really approaching, because that's when we find that it's most effective. And we won't send them, you know, a marketing email on that same day. We'll send it a day or two before. And then we might do personal outreach afterwards, but we wouldn't do it on the same day. So that's how we keep from overloading. Again, different, you know, alumni bodies, different constituents are used to receiving different things. And so you would have to tweak that to fit your alumni and what they expect from you and what won't overwhelm them. It works, but that's what works for us.
Mm-hmm. Great. Some other questions are coming in about some of the results that you've seen. So yeah. You have a sense of how many, you know, maybe new donors you've acquired or lapsed donors that you kind of re-engaged with Hustle?
Yes. So one of the reasons that we actually really love the tool is, I mean, it's great for engaging with your loyal donors, but your loyal donors, you know, are the easiest ones to engage with. One of the things that we found really surprising is how effective it is with side-bunts. You know, we've all got that group of people that churn and they make a gift every other year, once every 3 years, and for whatever reason, they have different priorities, or they have, you know, maybe you're just not as top of mind as we all want to be, and they just forget us sometimes. And one of the reasons we really enjoy Hustle is because we found that it's really good for re-engaging those side-bunt donors. And I think it's because it gives them an opportunity to ask those questions, to clarify. Many of them feel like they've made a gift, and we're able to say to them, you did, but it was 18 months ago. and then they're like, oh gosh, well, if I'd have known, I would have done it. And we're like, well, we sent you a lot of emails, but that's okay. Here's a link. You can make a gift now. So I know that I don't have off the top of my head the specific donor type breakdown for our two big campaigns last year, our calendar year end and our fiscal year end. However, I do know that between those two, the gifts that we can attribute back to Hustle made up 1% of our alumni gifts for the year. So for us, those are tremendous results. You know, if none of those gifts had come through, that would have been rather disappointing for us to be a percentage down in alumni giving. So those are important gifts for us. Altogether, that was, you know, 360 gifts or something like that. And that was just from those two big campaigns. That doesn't take into account smaller campaigns that we ran throughout the year. So I'm sorry that I don't have more concrete data on that right off the top of my head, but.
No, that's great. So we are just officially, for everybody, we're at 45 minutes. Catherine, if you have, you know, 5 more minutes, we do still have some questions that are coming in. But I did just want to give people that high sign that we're at that 45 if anybody needs to jump it off. So I'll keep going through maybe 3 more questions and then we'll wrap it up, and I'll do my best to follow up with folks who didn't get their question answered. So question around how do you craft scripts? I think we all kind of get text messages now, and I think the great thing about Hustle is that you can tell they're from a person, but you have to craft it in a way that makes it clear that it's not spam, right? And so how do you all go about doing that? How do you make sure that it feels personal and that people are kind of more eager to respond?
So one of the things that we do, like I said, is we include personal information where we can and where appropriate. And because Hustle allows us to load in things like last gift designation, last gift amount, last gift date, we're able to say things to people, like I showed in that one example of, will you renew your support to the Shaw Wellness Fund or to the swimming team or to the Colgate Fund or whatever their gift may be. So I think that's one way that people know that, they're talking to a real person. Then we have a few people review these messages. Sometimes when we initially write them, they sound kind of like a marketing email because that's just a lot more of what we do day to day. So we'll pass it around and we have a few people kind of review them. I aim to get them as short and sweet as possible. I feel like, having a big, unexpected, wordy text message come through to your phone could be rather off-putting. It's hard though, because we have a lot we want to say. We want to let them know we're a real person. So we want to give them our name. We want to let them know who they are. We want to thank them for giving in the past if they've done that. We want to ask them something specific and give them a deadline. Like, it gets tricky. So we really look at them closely and carefully and look for words that we can remove. Like, can we say this without this word or that word? We like to throw in emojis to make them fun, to make them seem a little bit more, again, like a person sending them. And I think we just try to make the tone of them sound like a real person. The other thing is your agents have the ability to go in and change their base script. I always tweak mine a little bit. So we set up, kind of the launch script, as it were, that blasts out to everybody, not blast, but as you're hitting go, goes to every single person. I always go in and tweak mine as an agent to sound a little bit more like me. And I think it's important you let your agents know how to do that and, give them your blessing to just make it sound like them. So I'll change a word or I'll change a little bit of punctuation because it's just not what I would say. So I want it to really sound like me. And that's one way that you can make it sound like a real person, is let the real people that are doing it, say it the way they would say it.
Yeah. One just tip that I've heard from other people too, and that I use sometimes, is actually draft it on my phone so that you see what it's going to really look like in that window that it's going to come through.
Yeah.
That can be helpful too. All right, so 2 more questions. One is about phonathon. You mentioned that you all do, make calls. Mm-hmm. Do you incorporate Hustle kind of directly with that program, or just kind of generally part of the same multi-channel approach?
When we got the product, we thought we might. We haven't, for a couple of reasons. And I think there's potential to do it. We don't incorporate it. One thing that we do that might be different than a lot of schools is our phonathons run for a rather short period of time. They run for a matter of weeks in the fall and in the spring, and they don't necessarily align with when we would like to be doing our big kind of hustles. So we haven't been doing that. It's something to consider. It's something we have considered. It's certainly something that's on the table for us, but we haven't done it as of yet. So we really do just treat them like 2 different channels. We've never used Hustle as a way to supplement or support the phonathon, mm-hmm. But you could.
Yeah, I will say we have other folks that definitely do. Mm-hmm. So that's certainly an option.
Yep.
All right, so I will end on a little bit of questions about staff time. So obviously, you guys have this crew. Sometimes you have this big group together. But, on a regular Hustle campaign, how many folks are you really kind of getting around a table together or empowering to send those messages?
So we generally have, now I'm actually physically looking at these people and counting them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have, when we do a big campaign, maybe 8 to 10 people around the table. I'll be honest with you, it's not necessary to have that many people for a big campaign. We just enjoy it. And actually we get into arguments sometimes about how many prospects people were given in their pool, because they're like, but I'm already done and she's still going. So that's how many people we actually have around the table. I don't think it's necessary to have that many people. I think you could have the exact same results with 4 or 5 people. We also have 1 or 2 people in our office who are available to answer phones that day, because people can, if they get a number, if they get this message, they don't know who it is and they try calling it back, you can set it up to call to any number you choose. So ours calls back to our 1-800 line. And so we do have people that their jobs while we're hustling are to answer the phones. Sometimes people call and they speak to the agent that they were on the phone with. Sometimes they just call and hear us say Colgate University and they hang up. So they were just confirming it was really coming from us. Sometimes they call and they want to make their gift over the phone. So I find it's really helpful to have someone who's dedicated to answering the phones that day, so that the people that are hustling can focus on that and the phone people can focus on that. So I would recommend having a person, or at least knowing that that's going to happen, and having a phone nearby with that number, the phone that will be ringing back if someone calls nearby, so someone can answer it. And honestly, even when we're doing our larger campaigns of 8,000, it takes us a couple of hours. It doesn't take long at all. And it goes by really fast because it's really fun.
Well, I think that's a great note to end on. Any last words, Catherine?
Gosh, well, thanks again to Hustle for giving us this opportunity to talk about our program. We really enjoy it, and I hope that all of you that are new to the platform or are kind of thinking about how you're going to expand it have a lot of fun and find that you have wonderful results with it, just like we have.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure you're being showered with silent applause right now. Participants. But I really want to thank everybody who took time out of their day to join us. I'm sorry I didn't get to quite all of the questions, but I will go through and try to follow up with you all so we can continue this conversation. I find that whenever we get higher ed hustlers together, there's never enough time. So this will be a continued conversation, and I really appreciate your time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.